Woo! Hello, Giants fans. You know me, your host, Craig Santucci, from the Giants Guys, because you are listening to the Giants Guys. But today is a little bit different. We are in the lab. We're doing our weekly podcast. But if you've noticed, there's only 3 people in the room. Jeffy, who's always with me, Mr. Pilgrim. And we have a special guest star who you know from WABC, WFAN, Mr. Russ Salzberg. How are you, Russ?
Good, guys. How you guys doing?
We're great. And we are super excited that you are here because, as everyone knows, you're close to the Giants. You are what we would call an insider. And there's so much to talk about. We thought there wasn't going to be a lot to talk about because it's the middle of the summer, but as you see, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not all good things because we're still talking about a pandemic, and I really don't know. I mean, believe me, guys, I got my fingers crossed. I want there to be a season. I think the season's going to get off the ground, but you just don't know. And it's not just a question about the Giants. It's a question about the other teams, other places, if they have spikes and surges. You've seen what's happening in baseball, for crying out loud. The Miami Marlins today, what was it? 8 guys. That we're going into the unknown. But having said that, it looks like we're having a football season.
Yeah, it does look like. We've talked. We do this podcast every single Monday, and we've talked about how, being a Giant season ticket holder, they sent the letter out. It told us, hey, if I wanted to opt in or opt out, I did opt out. Which seemed like the smart move. Yeah, it seemed like the smart move. And the unique thing about it was, and I made a joke of it at the time, Jeff will kind of back me up on it, was they have a plan on how you pay them, but not a plan how they keep you safe.
That's always the plan. Listen, that's the business that we've chosen. If you want a ticket holder, you want to go to concerts, you want to go to Broadway plays, that's the business.
Yeah.
Let him rest in peace. The late great Giants GM George Young always used to say to us, gentlemen, it's always about the money. It's always he did. Yeah. And believe me, that involves all parties concerned. And I can tell you this, and this is not big blue. I don't have my big blue underwear on saying this. Nobody is more concerned about the fans than the Giants ownership. I can tell you that emphatically. Wellington Mara, let him rest in peace, was that way. Bob Tisch was that way. John Mara's that way. Steve Tisch is that way. But it's a gray area. Everybody's trying to get a season. The players want their money. The owners want their money. But, it comes with – it's a risk for you and me every day. So it's a risk for everybody else.
Yeah.
And the NFL, more than any other organization, seems to carry on, and we're having a season. And every other organization seems to be so careful with everything. And NFL just went right forward with the draft. They're approaching like there's going to be a season. So everyone's going along for the ride so far.
Well, you got to remember something, Jeff. In fairness to football, I'm not just talking about the Giants. I'm talking about the NFL. They, fortunately for them, their season was not interrupted. Their season starts in September. So they were able to, if you will, look at the glass half full instead of the glass half empty, because they weren't affected, technically speaking, in terms of they can go about their business and proceed. Now, whether it gets interrupted, listen, the Giants have already said, as did their co-tenants, the Jets, there's not going to be any fans in the stands at MetLife Stadium. So they're preparing for what is. It's just, the NFL was able to go ahead and, make their plans, tentative plans, shall we say.
That's a good point, because it hit right after the Super Bowl. So it didn't impact last season at all. And then they had more time than every other sport.
Yeah. Just think about this. If we have, fortunately speaking, a football season, I was thinking about this the other day, guys. If we have a football season and they play and they go through the playoffs and everything, you might have a Super Bowl without any fans.
Yeah.
Wow.
How
Think
weird
about
would that be?
That'll be the largest. That'll be the largest streamed event in history.
Oh my goodness gracious, without question.
You
Yep.
know, whoever has the rights to this, you know, I'm sure all these streaming platforms are going to want to jump in, or whatever network has it this year. They better start working on their streaming capacity, because you don't want to be watching the game and have glitches.
Yeah, and I don't think you're going to have a halftime show from somebody's living room.
Hey, Russ, you never know.
You never know. Fair
You
enough.
know, like you said, unprecedented times. Yeah, you could easily have someone do a halftime show from their garage. You never know.
We'll find out, but let's get there first.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So I always have the big question for me is,
Right.
you know, like the 10,000-foot view for a second, because we've been chawing up a lot of these small topics for a while because there wasn't a lot to talk about. But the one thing that always comes back around, I get it on Twitter, I get it on the website, nygiantsrush.com, is always, what are the expectations for Joe Judge? Because, A, we've got all new coaches. We've got a lot of new players. There's no preseason now, which is recently announced, right? So what is the expectations? Are they behind the 8 ball because it's new coaches, new players? Or, you know, should we have the expectation like everyone's on the same playing field?
Well, I think expectations, look, they didn't hire him. He didn't wow them because they didn't think he could be a winner. They hired him to get the ship turned around. Having said that, guys, listen, he's a first-year coach, first-year head coach, and can't think of a 38-year-old first-year head coach in the major market of the world, and he gets the job on the back end of a pandemic. Okay, I mean it's tough sledding, but I will say this: I from what I've seen, I think he's made it the right stuff. But we've said that about other guys who are failures, and we thought other guys would be a great success, and they ended up becoming that. I think, though, you can't expect him. I mean, listen, every head coach, I don't care who they are, their expectation is to go out and win every game, and we got to get in. As Bill Parcells used to say, all you got to do is get into the tournament. Once you get into the tournament, anything can happen. You know, having said that, I think they had a good draft. I think he knows what he's doing. I think he's got great leadership skills. But it doesn't mean anything unless they get it done. And I will say this. I might be in the minority, and some of your fans might not like hearing this, but I think a lot of the heavy lifting was done the past few years with Pat Shermer. I think, some of the things just went sour. And listen, I was the biggest fan. I got along great with him, of Odell. Things just didn't work out. And then you had injuries. But I think Joe Judge comes into a good situation. He's got, I think some of the draft picks, I'm extremely excited about the first two in particular. I'm extremely about Andrew Thomas, and really excited. I think they stole Xavier McKinney. Okay.
That's
I
the
really
consensus.
do. Yeah, I really do. But let's remember, Shermer was the guy, what we got to see from Daniel Jones. I mean, that took some courage to pull that trigger, and I understand the Giants had to make a move. But when you talk about heavy lifting, the heavy lifting was done with Daniel Jones. And I think, listen, if your quarterback's not going to be any damn good, you're not going to be any damn good. At least not your record won't be. And I think Daniel Jones, I really think this kid's the real deal. From the moment I saw him, the first day I met him, spoke to him, watched the way he carried himself, I just think it's no joke. He is an Eli clone. Now,
I was going to say it's Eli Light.
But you know what? You guys hear and read all about that, but I got to see it up close. And I'll tell you what, I'll never forget the day I was sitting in the dining room, in the back, preparing to do my Giants Big Blue Kickoff live show. And there comes two guys alone, walking into the dining room alone. This was after the announcement was made.
Okay.
And who it was? It was the announcement of the quarterback change, and it was Eli and Daniel Jones, like me in my shadow. And nothing had changed throughout the season. He handles himself extremely well. He's very bright. And just like Eli, don't judge his soft-spokenness. That veneer doesn't tell the truth. I mean, he is one tough hombre, just as Eli was. So, I think, as the quarterback goes, obviously you need your offensive line, which I think is going to be improved because the offensive line is going to be improved. I think you're going to have it's going to make it better for Saquon. So let's see what happens. But,
you're more than just an analyst. I mean, you're a fan, which is.
Let me tell you something. Anybody who says they're not a fan is full of crap.
Yeah.
Okay. and you know what? The day I stop being a fan is the day I want to get out of the business.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't, because it doesn't mean you can't be objective.
Sure.
But you gotta like what you're doing.
See, I'm always objective. I don't mind saying what I see or what I feel or what I hear. But I want to go back to what you said before about your big blue underwear, or hat or shirt, whatever it is. What's the gut tell you on a season? Like, again, all these new coaches, all these new players. Yes, the heavy lifting was done by Pat Shurmur with the quarterback move. I'm like, can the team win 7 games? Can the team win 6 games?
Oh, I don't see why not.
Okay.
I'll be frank. When I'm going into a season like this, if I can get 8-8, I think that would make for a successful, turnaround. I think 8-8 would be okay. I know Joe Judge doesn't want to think that way. I know the Giant players don't want to think that way, nor does ownership. And that's the way they're supposed to think.
Sure, but reality, yeah.
If you're asking Russ and Craig and Jeff as fans or, me in the media, I would say 8-8 would be pretty good. Anything other than that gives them a chance to get into the tournament.
Yeah.
So you just never know. Listen, if the offensive line is what we think it can be, that bodes well for both Daniel Jones and Saquon. So, I mean, if you can put points up on the board, and then the defense comes around, you got something.
You're absolutely right. 8-8 would be an absolute monster season, considering no offseason, new staff, all these young guys. They have a limited time to get down to a 53-man roster if it stays a 53-man roster. Everything against them. 8-8.
Gel.
As a fan, I'm ecstatic with 8-8.
No, I will tell you this. If you mentioned 6-10, if you gave me 6-10, I'd be real disappointed.
Okay.
And they would be too, because it's a fresh start. I know that there's talent there. So, but again, and I can't judge. I always say this. I love when people and it's members of the media and they drafted this guy, they drafted that guy, how did they pick this guy? What were they thinking? Let me ask you a question, Craig and Jeff. How many of these guys did you see play on a regular basis? Right? How many times did you watch Andrew Thomas up close and Xavier McKinney up close and Matt Pert and Donna?
Maybe 2-3 times the max. You'd have to actually sit there and watch hours of YouTube.
That's all I have. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise,
that's my point. Unless you're one of these nerds who are watching it 24/7, because that's the life. So I can't make a judgment on that. I can't make a judgment on an assistant coach who I don't know a whole lot about. I think it starts with the head coach, and he has shown from the very beginning he's got a lot of leadership skills. No, he's also dealing with strange times, and that's like I said when you initially asked me that, he's dealing with a pandemic. Yeah. Nobody's doing this before. No veteran coach has done it before, let alone a rookie coach who's 38 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm having my own trauma. I have only missed, I tell these guys all the time. So I've had the season tickets in my family since 68.
Oh,
I've only missed 6 games since 1984.
right.
So I'm going through mourning myself, thinking like, whoa, what am I going to do on Sunday now?
Hey, let me tell you, I'm saying to myself, this is my favorite part of the year when training opens. And I'm used to going to the Giants facility every day, sit and shoot the breeze with the guys, sit and having lunch, this and that. None of us is seeing the inside of a locker room this year.
Okay.
It's all going to be on Zoom. None of us are going to be the inside of a locker room. I mean, the way sports are going to be covered might change completely for the future because we will not see the inside of a locker room this season. Not in football.
Russ, will you actually have post-game interviews via Zoom?
That's all anybody's going to have.
Like
so
Deion Sanders.
Like when the game's over, the guys hit the showers, they get changed, or maybe it's immediately after the game. Like, are they going to have like monitors or something, or like laptops in there?
Well, that I don't know that they've got that figured out yet. But I will tell you this: training camp is going to be Zoom, Zoom, Zoom.
Okay.
That's all it's going to be. You know, I don't want to speak for what's going to happen when the season starts.
Okay.
See, my gut feeling was, and I had believed this, that I thought if the NFL would have had their druthers, if in their gut they might have been told to say, listen, guys, there's a chance you might be able to play in front of fans, let's say in October, point, October. I think they would have delayed the start of the season. I think the owners unanimously would have said, yeah, let's do it. But that was not realistic. So now you got to go ahead, I guess, with September 10th. And, you know, we'll see what happens. But I can tell you this, you're not going to see any of us inside a locker room after practice or after a game. Nobody.
So all that access with the new players will be completely different than any other year you've ever seen.
New players, old players, all players.
Yeah.
You just won't have it. And, you know, that's something that's really going to affect, to me, a lot of ways that the way a team is being covered, because you got to remember, that's how you build relationships. You know, you sit and you go to locker, you schmooze with this guy, you schmooze with that guy, you get to build relationships. There's none of that building anymore.
Sure.
It's everything has changed. The landscape of how teams are covered, not just in football, in all sports, is completely different.
Well, Jeff, ask him.
Yeah.
Jeff, ask him about the defense, because I know that was important to you, because I know, 2019, they were the 30th ranked defense. I know, Jeff, you wanted to ask that about
because
those players.
It was dreadful last year. I mean, seeing guys on the other offense run free, like nothing I've ever seen before in my life. Like a long third down, you don't even get excited. You know the other team's converting. It just felt like that the whole year. Where do you find like the blame for that kind of defensive season? Do you think it was just lack of talent? Was it scheme, the coaching? Like, where do you think that was mostly to blame for?
I think some of it was the scheme. I think, they needed some edge rusher. They needed, pass rushing. I really hope that they re-sign Marcus Golden, because I think he brought it every day. Not only did he bring it as a player, he brought it as a man. He's a great guy in a locker room.
You like him?
Oh, a tremendous guy. Just a tremendous, 120% all the time.
I'm glad you said that, because I don't find he gets covered very often. So he's one of these players that I don't think now, if you're in Arizona, you might know him, but I don't think the Giants fans really know Marcus Golden. So it's good to hear you say something about him, because, again, he seems a little bit of an anomaly.
He's a team-first guy, and maybe that's his problem as far as PR goes. He's not interested in me. He's interested in getting the job done. And I watched him after games, take a beating, and the losses mounted up, and he didn't like things being said about the team, about his coaches. He's a really quality guy, so I do hope they get him back.
I also think that was a great move by Gettleman, placing the tag on him. I know he was asking for upwards of $10 million on the market, but putting that tag on him allowed us to potentially get him at this discount where he was probably the brightest spot on our defense the whole year. The guy was always making plays.
Marcus?
Yeah.
Oh, without question. I think without question, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So Marcus, he brings it pretty good.
Yeah, I was disappointed. You got the 30th ranked defense in 2019, but the bright spot is you bring in Bradbury from Carolina, you bring in Martinez from the Packers, you sign Leonard Williams. This defense has got to be better.
Well, I mean, you just said Martinez. I'm really high on.
Me too.
I think Carter can play.
Bradbury.
I happen to really like X-Man. I happen to think
Zemenis.
I think he can play. That was on defense. That was their Achilles heel. So you bring that in. They got to get a pass rush. See, I'm glad you said Leonard Williams. People were bitching and moaning about that. I thought that was just an upside deal. I don't get into, well, with this cap, or if you do this, I let the GMs, I let Gettleman figure that out. I mean.
Yeah, can he play or can he not play?
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, I'm not waving my big blue pom-poms, but if I had to read, when teams lose, especially in this world of social media, you guys know this, in the world of social media, they want to hang everybody right away. I mean, they wanted to, hang. I was there watching, how could you draft Daniel Jones and the stuff that you read about Daniel Jones and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Nobody was saying that midway through the season.
No. Not at 3,000 yards and whatever, 24 touchdowns.
No, so, like I say, I think some of the heavy lifting was done, but they had to make a change. So, Pat Shermer's gone. Joe Judge came in. Joe Judge is like I said, forceful, impressive. He's got great breeding. He's worked under Saban. He's worked under Belichick.
Sure.
He knows about a winning pedigree. So, but again, you and I can talk about how great everybody is. Players got to play. If they don't perform, doesn't do but anybody any good.
We talked about Daniel Jones a little bit, and I'm just wondering what you think, because he seems like Eli part 2, but athletic, right? But he's that quiet, kind of tough, lead by example kind of guy. What do you see as the ceiling for him? Do you see this guy being a Super Bowl winning quarterback, or enough to just keep the Giants competitive?
No, I don't. They didn't draft him to keep the Giants competitive. That was not in their mindset. Not at all. Guys, I'm telling you, they drafted him. The mindset is, especially when you're drafting a quarterback that high, the mindset is, this is our franchise quarterback. And if you're a New York Giant in the front office, if you're an owner or a GM or head coach, when you're picking a guy that high, that's your guy. That's the bill. Dave Gettleman knows his legacy. He's going to be judged. You can take all the names we just mentioned. He's going to be judged, no pun intended about Joe Judge. He's going to be judged on what happens with Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I was like everybody else, who? Duke?
Right.
I gotta be transparent and own up. I was one of those guys too. I'm like, we're drafting a guy from Duke, but when I watched him play, the athleticism to scramble, the balls were there. Again, he's going to have to call up Tom Coughlin to teach him how to not to fumble. But he looked great.
Well, and you're right about the fumbling, but you got to add a little caveat to that. There's fumbles and there's fumbles. He didn't just fumble the ball. He got knocked on his ass.
Yeah.
He got clocked a good few times, and there were quite a few times I don't know how he held on to the ball. So I don't view that as a problem. That's why you're bringing in the Andrew Thomases. That's why you're bringing in the Shane Lemieux. You follow what I'm saying? So
Yep.
Listen, if we're talking about that, Nate Solder has to play better.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
The offensive line, everybody has to play better.
And Solder had, I mean, I'm not making excuses for the poor guy, but he had a lot going on personally last year too.
Listen, I used to ask him every day, how his son was doing. It's been a battle with cancer. And on top of this, when you think about it, with the pandemic, his son has pre-existing conditions. It adds to what he's got on his mind. But nonetheless, and listen, Giants are very, very cognizant and understanding of the issues. But if you're asking me who's got to improve, he's one of the guys that still has to play better.
No doubt. That line, this could
everybody.
Yeah. And I don't want to jinx it, but it could be one of the best lines they've had in a while with Zeitler and Lemieux. They've got a lot of young talent in the room. If Jones isn't getting knocked around, the fumbles will get cut down without a doubt.
Like what do they say? The wrist bone's connected to the forearm's connected to it is. Works that way.
You can't put a crumbling O-line in front of any rookie quarterback and expect him not to make mistakes or get his head knocked off.
Jeffy, we couldn't put a crumbling line in front of a future Hall of Famer either. It didn't work then, and it don't work now.
It doesn't work. And Russ, I got one last question for you.
No, you know what, guys? I'm okay for a little bit if you want to keep it going. So
yeah, it'd be great.
Awesome. Well, we're talking about the O-line, talking about Daniel Jones. Saquon Barkley, he's a generational running back, and he seems right. You could tell me if he's as good a guy as he seems like. He seems almost like
he is.
Cut from like that Victor Cruz cloth where he just says the right thing. He just seems like a good person.
Yeah.
Am I right with that?
Dead on.
Awesome.
He gets it. He gets it. Yeah, I'll tell you, I could say this. I don't remember a guy who was the number 2 pick overall coming into the biggest market that there is to have his feet planted so squarely on the ground, not acting effective. Listen, Derek Jeter, I think, was the 6th overall pick as a New York Yankee. But the 6th overall pick in baseball ain't the 2nd overall pick in football. It doesn't get the fame and notoriety. And Saquon is the real deal. But again, Saquon injured, and they need to play. You got to block.
Yeah.
If you don't block, you're in trouble.
Here's my follow-up question to that, because you see these running backs, they know that their shelf life can be somewhat limited. Saquon may be one of the few guys that's worth it, but do you think the Giants, when it's Saquon's turn, he doesn't seem like a holdout kind of guy. But do you think the Giants break the bank for him?
I'll cut you right off. Yes, I would say yes. That they know what they have in him, unless God forbid something happens to him.
I'm knocking on wood right now.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Me too. but really, Saquon. I would listen. They broke the dumbest things, guys. You're fans, as well as broadcasters, because this is what you do. They broke the bank for Odell Beckham Jr. They broke the bank. And then when they traded him, I love when people are saying, Gettleman, the Giants, they never wanted him here. They just gave him $90 million freaking dollars.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't work out. There was a problem. Let me tell you something. I remember I was on the phone with Odell the night he was traded.
No.
Wow.
That's an amazing story right there.
No. Listen to me. And he didn't know he was traded yet, or was earlier in the day. I'm telling you, I was on the phone with him, and he said to me, "I just feel underappreciated here." And I remember he once said that to me in the locker room, and I said, "Odell, do yourself a favor. Don't ever say that publicly to anybody."
Yeah, sure.
And he looked at me. I said, "Odell, they don't care about you. They gave you $90 million.
Yeah, I mean, you know what, Russ? Outside of, like I said, being being a fan, Yankees, Rangers, Giants, the whole thing, in my lifetime, and I'm in my late 40s, and I've been going to these games, since I was a teenager. From a generational standpoint, LT, Derek Jeter, Odell would have been that guy. I mean, he was polarizing as it comes.
Couldn't agree with you more. Listen, I was a big fan of Odell. I used to speak with him all the time. I think it got away from Odell, and I think Odell might have had too many people whispering in his ears.
I believe that.
I think, trust me, he'd rather be playing in the Big Apple than in Cleveland.
Yeah, even with his best friend, I believe it.
Yeah. So, but hey, how about there's also been some stuff in the offseason that nobody's happy about. The Aldrich Rosa situation, the DeAndre Baker.
Yeah.
I was the Rojas thing. Well, it's disappointing, and Jeff, you're more than likely to jump in here. You might have a different take on it because we covered a little bit of it. The thing with the Rojas thing is, I didn't find, he had a bad year, a good year, a bad year. I'm not. If it doesn't work out with Rojas, I'm not crushed. The Baker thing makes me a little crazy for numerous reasons. The guy could play in college. He looked good. Seemed like he'd be a good system guy. Then you hear he's sleeping in meetings. He doesn't understand the defense. Right. And then this whole situation, you're trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. And then the stories are coming out about people getting paid off to get him off the hook. So, someone said to me, well, isn't it innocent and proven guilty? Doesn't he get any second or third chance? I'm like, listen, Lawrence Taylor got 20 chances because he was amazing. When you're not amazing, you don't get a lot of second and third chances.
That's in every walk of life. I don't care what business you're in. If you're an entertainer, if you're in a big corporation, a hotshot, big corporate lawyer, if you're producing, you get cut slack. If you're a star player, whether it's behind a desk or on a playing field. And when people say, well, what about Lawrence Taylor? We have not seen the second coming of Lawrence Taylor yet at any. So let's not go there. As far as the Rosas thing, I like the kid. He's a nice kid, quiet, kept to himself. I wasn't crazy about his mental makeup. I think there was some fragility there.
Okay.
I don't know. A place kicker is a little different to me. And I got spoiled watching Matt Barr because Matt Barr did not have the biggest leg. I didn't want Matt Barr setting up from 53 and 54 yards out. But let me tell you what, babe, from 49 yards in, he was money. And his makeup told you that. I just realized I'm sitting outside. Can you guys still see me?
Yeah.
Getting dark, my friend. You are getting dark.
Okay.
I can still see you for now.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got about 7-8 minutes, and you're gonna be audio only.
Well, hang on. I'm walking in.
All right, no problem. Actually, you know what, Russ? With the sky behind you, I can see you good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can't stand up on a ladder, so hang on. We're in the dark. See this?
We talked about the Rojas thing a couple times, and like you said, you were kind of worried about the makeup of him because he'd look great one week, and then the next week he'd kind of, he'd go in the tank.
Right.
So it's difficult with kickers because you don't fall in love with a lot of kickers.
No, but you want to know something? They didn't let him go because they didn't have confidence in his leg. They let him go because of the off-field incident. That's why they let him go. Anybody tells you different is wrong.
Yeah, they signed somebody this morning, didn't they?
Catanzaro.
Yeah, the guy formerly of the Jets. So, but that's the reason he's gone. And quite frankly, that's going to be the same. Listen, this is not inside information. This is just Russ talking. But take it to the bank. DeAndre Baker is going to be gone too.
Really?
I don't think, like you kind of brought it up earlier, second chance. Maybe somebody wants to give him a second chance, but I doubt it's going to be with the Giants. I think Goodell will probably put him on, what do you call it, the exempt list or commissioner's list?
Good call. He did that today. Yeah.
Okay, he did that today.
Yeah.
I think the next step is, he's going to be an ex-Giant. I mean, see, if the Giants would have cut him outright, this is not inside information. It's just logic. If the Giants would have cut him outright, they would have been on a hook for millions of dollars of guaranteed money.
That's a good point.
That's business, but and listen, it's an unfortunate situation. Then when people, that's another thing we were kind of alluding to. When the situation came up with DeAndre Baker, when he got in this trouble, then everybody was talking about, well, they should have known he was this kind of kid. How do you don't know? You never know.
Yeah.
There were no signs that told you that.
I mean, there were some stories about him having a little bit of a rough pass, but not enough to pass on that kind of talent.
I'll tell you what. If I had a dime for everybody who had a rough pass in the NFL, I'd be able to retire.
Yeah, you'd be a rich man.
Exactly.
And people on Twitter, they love to jump all over Gettleman any chance they get. And today was another example.
We went round and round. So Russ, I've got about 6 guys that write for me on a regular basis.
Right.
And for the website nygiantsrush.com. I let them write about anything they want, and then we laugh because so I've been doing the Twitter thing for I think 7 years now. And, guys like to jump in and, get on me for my opinions. And after a while, I just hand it off to these guys. I go, one of our other writers, Spiro, Jeff, Mike, I'm like, guys, I got other stuff to do. You guys want to debate with these guys because they just get crazy. So I hand it off to these guys. And Jeff and my other guy, Spiro, which I hope you meet sometime, they must have went round and round with these guys, knuckleheads, for about on and off for 2 hours.
But believe me, if I wasn't in this business, I wouldn't be on Twitter and I wouldn't be on Facebook.
I don't blame you.
And it's not just, if you think this is bad in sports, man, just watch the politics. Oh my goodness. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah, it's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
So the Baker thing's, the thing about Baker, and we covered it last week, Jeff, what were we saying? That there's a really good chance they don't miss him anyway because they've got, what's his name from UCLA that they drafted?
Darnay Holmes. That's my dude.
Yeah, Russ, you got to understand that Jeff absolutely loves
Darnay.
Why am I drawing a blank on his name?
Darnay Holmes.
Darnay Holmes.
Yeah, Holmes. So Jeff loves Holmes. He went out on a limb. He's got a little notebook there in his studio, and he writes down these hot takes that we say. He has predicted Holmes to start by week 5.
Yeah, and this Baker thing is only helping my case because that's just making it a little bit more open,
Yeah, no, 100%.
I love the guy, but they like to blame Gettleman for when these guys make bad decisions and everything. But I don't like Gettleman as a speaker. Right, I'm not a fan of him really at the podium, but I think he's drafted well.
His stand-up comedy doesn't work for you?
Oh, it's bad. It's bad. But I just wonder, Russ, how do you think he's doing overall? Do the players respect him? Do they understand what he's trying to build?
I think there was never any disrespect from the players. Somebody's going to say, well, how can Russ say that because of Odell Beckham or something like that? That situation would have happened with anybody.
Yeah.
Okay? Listen, Gettleman's a gentleman and Pat Shermer is a gentleman. Okay? Just some things didn't work out. Some moves were made and they had to be made. Listen, I was a fan of Snacks.
Yeah. He seemed like a great locker room guy and just a pro. Yeah.
But it got to a point, okay, well, it's not helping here. We got to do something about it. So let's do something about it. Let's make a move.
I always
So
say
that's-
Gettleman was handed a really tough, like he was dealt a tough hand. He had to unload these huge contracts and rebuild. You can't
Yeah,
do it overnight. But he's doing it the right way.
1,000%.
I'm a fan. I get flack for it all the time. I'm like, when you look back at the last 6 years, Jerry Reese, it wasn't working out. The plan wasn't working out. So Gettleman definitely had his work cut out for him, and I think he's doing a fine job. Is he perfect? Nobody's perfect, but overall, putting the team in the right direction.
Not an exact science, guys. Not an exact science.
Yeah. Well, Russ, I know you don't want to hang out with us all night. Maybe we can get you back on, in a couple of weeks or something.
Let me know. I've enjoyed it. Anytime, give me a call, guys, and I'll be glad to come on.
What can we promote for you? Anything you got coming up? What are you working on?
I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that the football season gets off and you'll be able to see me on Big Blue Kickoff Live twice a week. But you can also, I have my Get a Load of This podcast, which is it's not just sports. It's on politics. It's on everything. You get it on, if you tune in, go on the website, wabcradio.com. You can, they're all there. There's over of them. They're all there. So
I'll put it up on the website too. So, people can find you there. And if you'd be so kind to entertain us, maybe when we get into August or we get a little closer to the season, we can reconnect.
Without question. And if you guys are interested in other things other than sports, all next week, not this week, all next week from 6 to 10 in the morning, I'll be filling in for Bernie and Sid on WBC Radio, so you can listen in from 6 to 10.
See, I always had a affiliation for Russ and Sid because they were both Giant fans in New York. I always used to have issues where I always thought like FAN was a shill for the Mets and the Jets. I'm like, except for Russ, except for Sid. So yeah, if you're sitting there with Sid, I'll make sure to tune in.
No, I'll be sitting there, but they're on vacation. I'll be filling in for them.
Okay. Sounds great. All right. Well, thank you again. And you guys are listening to the Giants guys. And this audio will be available. Everything's going up today. Russ, thanks for staying tuned in. And Jeff, anything you want to say, Jeff? You're quiet today.
You can get me at Pilgrim's Point on Twitter. And Russ,
I'll argue with him.
I'll
argue with Jeff, not me.
So,
okay.
I'll
all
have
right,
it out.
guys.
Russ, great meeting you. Thanks, man.
Great meeting you, Russ. Have a good night.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.